This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
We all want our children to grow up and be good human beings. Our job as parents is to mold them, to guide them in the direction that we see is in their best interests, making sure that they have all the opportunities that we had and had not. It's hard to sit on the sidelines and watch your children fall, fail, or lose. We must stand by and make sure they know how to pick themselves up, realizing that those things are part of everyday life. Our kids grow up so fast. Through instruction, we help them meet their goals and not our own, sticking to the mantra that a coachable kid becomes an employable adult. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome back our very good friend, that's Bobby Crudele. We need a little extra time on this one, but we brought Bobby in because Bobby is so involved in his kids. We thought it would be nice to talk about the suffering of coaching your kids.
I got to tell you, Bobby is one of my best friends from childhood.
I won't hold it against him.
But he's one of the best fathers I know.
He's a great coach, and I think this is a good topic to bring you in.
He's involved in everything his kids do.
Bob, thanks so much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You canceled out about 50 times on us.
Yeah, he's like that.
Very busy.
Very, very busy guy.
Very busy.
Very, very busy guy. Before we get into any of this madness here, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotaofhackensack.com. Let them help you out. So, Bob,
where do you even start?
So I do want to throw a big shout out to Bobby. So for the longest time, Bobby, your 2 episodes, and I think it was like 65 and 66 that you did while we were on audio, were the top. They were the top. People love you.
I was here?
No. This was back in the old days.
That was back in the day.
In your basement?
In my basement.
I remember other things in the basement. I don't remember actually talking to you guys.
Here we go. Ding,
Right.
ding, ding.
Okay, let's
get serious for a minute. You were trying to have a professional podcast now. Would you?
Oh, I could give you guys one of my things. I should have brought it up.
I know. Yeah,
Why
you
didn't
should
tell
have.
me that?
You're like a fucking squirrel.
I know.
Where it just,
Those are ass plugs, right?
You just...
Oh, my
Oh,
bad.
dear Lord.
No, listen, Kev, he was going to give us one. He's going to wind up stealing one before we leave from Hudson County.
To pay for it at fucking here. As you go, what is that? Just take it.
So although we're in a different place, the show pretty much remains the same. Each week we take a question from our audience. This week's question comes from Zephyr, and it says, what is one lesson you've learned from your past transgressions that you feel your kids should know? Bob, you're our guest. Why don't you lead this one off?
I'm going to say, which I have instilled, especially in my big guy. I got a 14, 15, and 17-year-old. You get to the point where you make mistakes. Everything's about decisions, right? You growing up, you make decisions, transgressions, whatever. I drank too much. I did this, I did that. I wasn't a good person at times. But the one thing I always did, I owned it. I absolutely was accountable my whole life for everything I ever did. I never made excuses. And that's one of the things that I try to tell my kids all the time. You're going to fuck up. You're going to make mistakes. People are going to look at you like you're the jerk off. Own it. And it goes away a lot faster than when you say, it was Mikey. He fucking was, I don't know why his pants are down. Shit like that. It's like, hey, listen, it's own that shit. And I did it the whole time of my police career. If I fucked up, I've been in IA. They've been like, oh, did you do it? Yep,
I saw one time.
That was me.
I saw one time where that backfired. So in the town that I work in now, one of the guys, he put down the wrong, it was part of Verizon's scam. They said put in for 8 hours. He put in for 8 hours and worked like 3. So that's what he did. But
Never did that.
But
We've all did Jersey City.
We've all done that. We've all done all the
Edit.
all the retired guys at least have done that. So he went in, and this guy he doesn't have one thing on his jacket, went in and told the chief the truth. And guess what? They fired him.
Like, I never got in trouble like that was like anything earth shattering. I was in there for like stupid shit. You know how it is. We're all cops. Sometimes you're like, what the fuck? You're actually having an IA against me for this? And I would just come in and be like, yeah, I did it. I did it. I threw the bicycle and the fucking thing was supposed to go in evidence. It wasn't even a bike. Fuck the bike. I threw it in a thing. Give me my 3 days. Can I go now? It's just, but the message was to my kids is you have to be accountable. You have to own your mistakes, because if you don't, it gets easier and easier to keep blaming somebody else. And then,
it makes perfect sense. Is if you have a credit card bill and you don't pay it, is it going away?
No, it's going on your credit report. And then when you try to refi your house, they go, what the fuck is this? Oh,
yeah, right. So
shit.
I'm a firm believer in owning it. Mike, what do you think?
You know what I mean? Listen, Bobby knew me growing up. I was kind of like a little bit of a rebel. You know, I never, and this is going to.
With your cutoff jean jacket.
But, you know, with the bands
with the patch
painted on the back.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Had a bunch of them.
I know. I know. I just look at them and I know.
No, you know.
Oh, I know.
Oh, I know.
But I mean, this is going to go to what the subject of the show is tonight. Like playing baseball. Do you remember Ray Farley?
Yeah.
Ray Farley was he was my CYO baseball coach. He was my American Legion baseball
Forest
coach.
area I played. He was my coach.
He had more confidence in me than I had in myself. And I did nothing but fight back. I think at now looking back on it all these years later, I think he saw that I had leadership ability. You know, in CYO baseball in 8th grade, he came up to me and said, Mike, I want you to be the captain of the baseball team. Well, yeah, what are you, 14 years old? Doesn't mean anything to me, you know. American Legion, he came up and said, I want you to be the captain of the baseball team. It took me years because I fought him every day. I fought back every day. And it took me till I got a lot older to realize that he was trying to bring out the best in me. So I always told my kids, whether you like your coach or not, respect your coach. You're going to go through life and get jobs. You're not going to like your boss, but you got to respect your boss.
Yep.
One of the things I say in the beginning is a coachable kid becomes an employable adult. And I've heard that before. I didn't make that up. I wish I did, but
I made it up.
I'm a firm believer. Unfortunately, my kids have witnessed a lot of my bad behavior. You know, they were coming of age as I was just spiraling out of control mentally. And it wasn't until recently that I started to revisit those places of pain with my kids, mental pain with my kids, because the way I saw it, and I was coached through this, is if you visit those places of pain and confront your past, you can actually show your kids what a true miracle is, and a true miracle is a changed life. And I think we've all in this room, we've had that ability to show our children that miracle. And so my mental pain that I went through and my mental problems that I went through, those are the things I talk about with them, because there's going to be hurdles in their life. There's going to be times when they're up and they're down, and, you know, the sun rises tomorrow and things like that. They're going to make mistakes, and they're going to believe, you know, they're not going to believe in themselves. But if you go back to that place that's really uncomfortable and you're a changed person, you can show some people some really great things.
But see, I mean, like both of your kids are at the molding age now too. So you got to show them.
Yeah.
Your transgressions.
It could be a positive influence. You can
absolutely
turn a negative into a positive. It's just, you know.
They also know daddy is fallible.
Oh, yeah.
So daddy makes mistakes. He is not the end all be all. I'm a human being just like you are. You're going to make those same mistakes as well. Let me teach you the mistakes that I made in hopes that you don't make the same ones. I already made them.
My youngest son, Shane, says this year, 8th grade, his last year in youth football. My wife was talking to him, and I was doing something. She says, "What do you think of Daddy as a coach?" He says, "He's the best coach." He goes, in the entire league.
Wow.
She goes, "He's the best defensive coach. He knows offense better than the rest of the coaches. He's that good." She goes, "And I wish he could coach me the rest of my career." He goes, "And so does Ian. Ian feels the same way, but Ian won't tell him because he's just, other son's quiet. You know, he doesn't say as much." But he goes, half of the high school team wants him to come up and coach. But, you know, I can't. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying that was the biggest compliment. And I started thinking to myself, at least I did something for all those years, which was positive, because I wasn't the best father. You know, I was kind of absent. I was out there doing the job, you know, but then the job was like, oh, extracurricular, this and that. And, you know, and I wasn't there when I should have been, you know. I mean, like, I'm just saying, I would come in 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, that's how it is. And I wasn't that great of a dad. Like, I could have been much better, but I definitely made up for it in the last 3 years. So, you know, that was
But Bob, you know, I mean, my father was our coach when we were playing little
I
kids
remember.
football. Was playing little kids football. My father taught all of us so many life lessons just from being on the football field and in practice and everything else. Every time my father comes back to the Lyndhurst, North Arlington area, when people that we grew up with see him, I mean, they have nothing but the utmost respect for him because he taught us stuff when we were kids.
Not only that, your dad's different animal. He's the guy that you really, he commands respect. You know, he walks in the room. It's like, oh, Mr. Failace is here. It's not like, hey, Frank.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, when
it's
we
like,
started-
that's what I say to the son.
That's
hey,
what
Frank.
That's what he tells me all the time. He goes, "No, I'm Frank," and I said,
No,
"Then
he says it to me all the time.
you're
too. I'm
seeing-
like,
you're seeing
no,
it.
you're
No, you're
Mr.
Failace.
Failace, and you made me run gassers for.
You remember that? Like
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
didn't want to argue with the guy because I still think at 80-something years old he'd punch me right in the jaw.
He's a tough guy.
So, but anyway, Zephyr, thank you so much for sending that one and keep sending in your questions. We will try to get them on the air. But it is a nice segue into what I want to talk about tonight because we all have coached our kids and there's a lot of pain and suffering that goes into coaching your kids.
I thought this was, you said anal. That's what you told me coming up the steps. Oh,
No,
afterwards.
that's
Damn it.
the way he
And-
lured you in. He said transanal.
Andrew,
Don't threaten me with a good
we're
time.
going to need the button
Yeah.
just to beep out some stuff
Do you actually do that? I listen to your show all the time. I don't hear any beeping out.
because most people behave themselves.
This is just a little humor. People like that, you know? I mean, they got to explore yourselves, people. Explore.
No, but I know how involved you are with your children and the coaching of your children, and everybody thinks it's all good, but you sacrifice a lot of your other life for coaching your kids. But before we get into that, you said your one kid it's his last year of junior league football. He's done. You're done coaching him.
Mhm.
What did it feel like walking off the field with him for the last time?
I was emotional.
Yeah,
The bad part is that
You got
I
hurt.
did that last
He got
year.
hurt in the last game,
we
didn't
were
he?
in a championship game, and
And he got
we were
hurt.
driving, and they had no answer for him. He's our quarterback, and you know, I'll never apologize because my kids are good athletes. You know, that's the one thing I'll never do. I'm not the guy that's like, oh, they're the greatest thing in the world. But
And Kev,
They play.
his wife was a very good athlete.
she was awesome,
Not-
actually.
That's where they got their athleticism from.
I'm a much better football coach.
But
though.
I had a similar experience this year because the 8th grade coaches are all set, and so I coached my 7th grader for the last time, and there's a picture of him and I on the field for the last time together, and I remember turning to him going, hey, "Pal, this is the last time I'm going to coach you," and I remember getting that same like I'm starting to get choked up about it. I don't like. It turns out I may actually coach him in 8th grade this year, but
So you're a liar.
but no, I'm not. No, actually
no.
not.
Listen, it ruined it for me. It actually ruined it because we had a really good shot at winning that game, and we were driving, and we were down 1 point at that
Sure,
point.
your kid's hurt. You're
And
worried about winning the
He's
game.
running out of bounds, and he gets tackled from behind, and it tore like a really bad tendon in his foot. Didn't tear it, but it was almost torn. So bad that he couldn't. I mean, like screaming on the field, I can't go out like this. I got to stay in, everything. So there was no like talk between me and him at that point. I just went over to him and I said, listen, you're done. Just sit back. And, you know, it's going to unfold badly now. And he was at the game. Then the wheels came off because he's gone and we don't have, our offense can't run without him.
Listen,
But-
the other team knew that his son was the stud, and they had to stop him. If you remember, at the end of the game, the whole team, the other team,
Came over.
came across the field as he was sitting on the bench, and they all like patted him on the back.
That's
That was a
sign of
class.
respect.
That was a class move.
That's a
I
sign
got
of
the
respect.
That was a
coaches
class
calling
move.
me that some guys we played with them, we grew up with
Yep.
a lot of these guys, and they were all like, he's a baller. You know, he's going to get done. He's going to high school now. It'll be fine.
You know what the great thing is kudos to that other coach.
Yep, absolutely.
Kudos
Anthony
to that.
Finelli.
Yep.
Tremendous. I'll
It's class.
always remember when I went over to the other sideline, those guys, they were like, you know, sometimes, let's be honest, their best player went down. They were like, I'm so sad that he went down. This was another great game.
If you're a real competitor, you want to compete against somebody
Against the
at
best.
their best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not when they're
I don't want to beat them at their best.
Yeah, exactly. But now what were your coaches? You had Mike's father as a kid. What did your father ever coach?
My dad and mom got divorced early. So my father coached baseball in Kearney. He's a Belleville guy. And I never played. I don't think I could play with my dad. My dad was real hardcore, and my mother and my stepfather were never involved in any of the sports that I did. I was sort of on my own. I walked every practice I did. We talked about that last time. I didn't have involvement. It was like me. I did everything. So.
Because I had
his dad was an awesome football coach. He had Shalary was good. You run into these guys years later, and they remember you, and they say stuff to you, and they're like, I'm like, it's just, I played with really good football players, really good. I played with him, Mike Totora, Darren Sellers. Keith Nelson. Everybody on that team was just Eric Gratson. There's just a really, really good group of guys.
I hear Mike talk about his father, the way he coached him. I'm hearing you talk about it. I didn't have that foundation. Like, my father was a motherfucker as a coach, and I never it turned me off to sports. And that's why when I went away to college, I was so happy just to get away from him so he wouldn't be at my games, no less being a coach. He was that guy that would never, there's a fine line you walk between criticism and beating somebody down. You don't yell at a kid for striking out. Fucking Babe Ruth had the most strikeouts in the major leagues.
It's constructive criticism.
Correct. It's like, okay, here's why you struck out. All right, you got 20 seconds to think about it, and then you got to move on.
Break them down, build them back up. There's all kinds of slogans to it. It's coaching your own kids is a very difficult task. It's hard because don't forget you have them all the time, and then now you're coaching them and you're coaching. So two scenarios come into play. Either you think they're better than they are, and you treat them fucking like they're the greatest thing, and then it builds like an animosity for the rest of the team, and the coaches and the parents see all that shit. Don't forget, we're volunteers too. Nobody's paying us for this shit. Or
they're not paying you.
Or no. Oh, shh. Or
Ixnay on the APay.
Or the other part, which is just equally as bad. You treat them fucking 10 times worse than everybody else on the team. You're harder on them. You expect more from them. You use them to make an example so the rest of the team doesn't think you're giving them special treatment.
I think with my particular situation, it was expecting me to do something that he couldn't. Maybe fulfilling something, untapped potential that he may have had, but maybe just didn't have the drive to do it. So he was going to have his son do it. And I see that with a lot of coaches. I really do.
They live through their children.
They live vicariously through their kids.
So if you had to pick out something, what's something that you saw growing up in one of your coaches that you said, nah, that's not me? Like, you learn as much from the bad coaches as you do from the good.
Probably learn more from the bad coaches. And I got to say,
support for the Suffering Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming.
Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle.
Inside the package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0, Weed Whacker Ear, Nose, Hair Trimmer, and the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant.
And we also got the Crop Reviver Ball Toner. This thing is a life changer. Along with that, boxer brief.
I'm going to tell you what, these are like high quality boxer briefs, and this is no joke. I'm not saying this just because Manscaped sent it to us. These are nice. My boys are going to be quite happy in there.
You can't tell Kevin's wearing them under the table right now. And we also have a nice travel package.
Join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TSP at manscaped.com.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of balls.
My dad was at a lot of the incognito. I didn't know he was there. He never told me. He just showed up. And the one thing he would said to me later on in life, he goes, the only coaches that you have were any good were your leader coaches, your football coaches. He goes, baseball, no good. He goes, not until you got to high school. You had some decent coaches. But I think that the crazy part of it, the screaming and yelling, like it's a necessary evil, but it has to be used in a team. It can't be singled out to one person, and it has to be in a situation where it's going to motivate them.
Teaching like this, when I was coaching in North Arlington, the 7th and 8th grade kids, they didn't yell at anybody in the peewees and juniors, and then to get to the seniors. Now you're going to start yelling at them because next year they're going to go to high school. And those high school coaches don't care. They'll start yelling and screaming. So you got to almost ease them into, it's like a progression.
Absolutely. What's your main objective as a youth football coach on the 8th grade level, especially on the 8th grade level? Everybody says, "Oh, winning, you got to win." No,
It's get them ready for high school.
Development.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to get them ready for high school. That means you better have a relationship with your high school. You better see, because most of those kids are going to that high school. They're not going to Bergen Catholic. They might think they are, but they're going to end up at North Arlington or Lyndhurst or Rutherford or wherever, right? And those are all good schools, all good programs. But you have to develop them. So it's all about development. If you happen to win in the process, that's gravy, and that's great. They get to experience that. But it's so much different if you're doing it the right way. A lot of these coaches just want to win,
So
and they sacrifice the development part.
Exactly.
High school coach has a tough time dealing with that.
My junior program did that. They put all their eggs into one basket with a quarterback. Quarterback's not going to the high school. He's going to a private school.
Yeah, it's. Listen, I've been doing it a real long time, and one of my I stopped coaching my kids young because the guy who was running the program at the time that I took his place, but I coached with him all the way through, was Joe Witt. Joe Witt, Kearney guy, excellent quarterback for Kearney High, and a fantastic football coach. I guess my oldest was a peewee. He said, "Can you come up and coach seniors with me?" I said, "I really want to stay down with my son." He goes, "Why don't you come up with me and coach everybody else like you coach your son?" He goes, "Because you're a really good coach." He said, "You do things on a peewee level that the high school guys are doing." He goes, "Because I see you, you're 100 miles an hour. You want to and that was my work ethic. I just wanted to be the best at it. I had more of a passion for coaching football. I ran basketball before that. I coached baseball, sports that I was actually good at. You know what I mean?
There's nothing like coaching football.
Football's the best, and it teaches so many life lessons, and there's so much more involved. But it became, I can honestly tell you that I coach youth football like I'm a college coach. Like my practices are ran like they run practices at fucking Brown. Like, you know what I mean? Everything is like...
Everything's scheduled. And that's the one lesson that I took from because I was the head coach of, I coached the JV, but I also I was the head coach of the clinic, which is 3rd and 4th. And so you get the most out of your practices if you schedule it. And I'm looking at the high school coach's thing, and water breaks, walk out, like everything is perfectly scheduled. I did that this year, and I had enough assistant coaches where I could put all that stuff in play and not overwhelm myself. It worked out perfectly. We got the most out of every single practice.
Yeah. What I did is so I get up to the 8th grade now, and I don't see my kid for 3 years, and he gets to me mature. He's had other coaches, not that bad. Didn't have to correct a lot of things. And now he was ready for my, how I do my I'm a defensive coach, but I coach the running backs and the wide receivers, but my thing's defense. And it just was so much better. And I was so glad that he asked me to do that, and I did it. And then I got to coach them when they were bigger, and they're ready to go to high school now. They're ready to go, and we had a lot of success. We had a lot of success, and they learned a lot, and they go to high school, and that's the best reward. When a kid comes back to you, like I have kids come back to me and say, "Thank you so much. You were the best coach I ever had, or you made me a better high school player. Like you're always available to me."
So I had one of the greatest feelings of my life is when one of the kids you coached said, "I never had as much fun playing football as I did when I was with you." I was playing semi-pro football back then. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
When I was coaching the little kids in North Arlington, I was playing semi-pro football, and I always left my equipment in the car. And if the kids weren't hitting in practice, I'd go out, get my shoulder pads, put them on, put a helmet on, and they'd come through, and I wouldn't hit them hard, but you think you're that good? You come and block me. You come and block.
Lay them out.
Hit me.
Yeah.
The parents after practice were saying, "That was fantastic." I mean, that was great. Because we made it fun. You made it fun. It's a sport, and like you said, you want to win, but it's all about learning at that point.
Yeah, and it's about he said a great thing. Mike just said an awesome thing. We play sports to have fun. If you really take the percentage of how many elite players you're going to have that are going to make it to the next level,
the percentage is so small.
Which college is college, okay? Make it to that next level for everything, D3, D2, D1, D Power 5, all right? That percentages are super low all across the board. So listen, have fun, and if you'll pick your kids out that have that want to do it, and you'll see them, and you still coach them all the same, but you can work with that kid. You can give him more to handle.
But I've seen coaches so the whole reason that I got into coaching, I was an offensive line guy from the time I was 7 until I was 22. And I know in junior league football, you take the kid who's slow, who's that's it. You put when you don't know
Take
where to
your
put
linemen,
a kid,
your heavy guys.
you put
them
it
up there.
So my job, here's how I saw it. I didn't learn the value of the offensive line until I got into later years in high school and college. And then I realized that that's the most important position on the field, because without you guys, you don't get a playoff. So I had to instill that into somebody who was getting cast aside. And that's the only reason, because I never wanted to coach my kids because of my bad experience. So I want you to tell me, why did you get into coaching? Was it just for the love, or did you want to give your kids some extra instruction, some stuff you had up here?
I was watching flag football, and I don't just look at my kid. Like, I don't, like, my wife will say to me when she's watching our daughter, she goes, I'm not paying attention to the rest of the team. I'm watching her.
You watch the whole
I
picture.
watch everything. And I was watching flag football, and I was like, I wouldn't do it like that, because you know what? When I was an adult, because just to reverse a little bit, Mike gave a story about someone who said something to him when he was younger. And I had an athletic director at Queen and Peace. He passed away. He was a really good guy.
Eddie
Abramitis. And he said to me, I was like, I don't know, I was 20-something. I was playing touch football and flag football and softball everywhere, reliving the stuff that I was a playground jock, And Steve Nash was in Tormelinos or something with Abro. I was like 25, 26 years old. I come walking in. Steve goes, hey, Bobby's a great athlete. He goes, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And Abramitis, when I was little, like, he was this big muscle head. Now I'm this big guy.
We used to call him Eddie Arms.
Yeah.
He had
jacked.
like this.
He says to me, yeah, he was a really good athlete. The biggest underachiever I've ever met in my life.
Ooh.
That's
You know
a
what?
tough one.
I didn't even phase. I didn't say nothing. I just nodded my head and said, you're right, coach. And then he hugged me and he goes, I tried. He goes, I tried. He goes, you weren't having it. He goes, when you transferred to North Arlington, they called Rip Collins, said, you got a 3-sport guy here. Make him stay back. He's immature. Make him stay back. He's young. Make him stay back and play 2 years with you guys. My stepfather wasn't going for it, but that's all me. You got to own that shit. I was content to go to Jefferson Playground and I can play basketball and stickball and play touch football and, organized sports were that important to me. I played them, but it wasn't the thing for me.
He was a playground all-star.
Big time. Legend.
At what point you're watching flag football and then...
Okay, I'm watching flag. I got off track there. So I'm watching flag and I'm like, I don't like this. So I asked Joe Witt if I could get involved. And he said, yeah, get your fingerprints done. And I started doing stuff a little different for everybody. And listen, I already knew my son was a good athlete. He was the youngest. I knew he was good. I knew he was going to be good. I didn't have to worry about, I'm worried about how good he's going to be or what's he going to do. I just knew the athletic part would take care of itself. I wanted him to learn the right ways. I have a lot of friends. He's one of them that really know football. And I've always been the coach that uses his resources. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I really use my resources. I have very close friends that are awesome coaches on the high school level. I got this guy. He comes to all my games. I'm not afraid. I'm the coach that raises his hand and goes, I got a question. Because I don't have the ego. I just want to do the best I can for the kids.
Vince Lombardi didn't know everything.
Yeah.
You always got to look out, reach out for some help somewhere.
But what I do, I outwork everybody. I outwork everybody. I'm talking 8 hours a day in front of the computer. This is 8th grade football. My wife's like, you're still in the same spot you were when I left this morning. I said, I got up and I had some coffee. I went to the gym. I came back. You're watching film. This is 8th grade. I said, I got preparations, everything, babe.
Hard work beats talent,
but
especially when talent doesn't work hard.
Exactly.
And that's why I got involved. And then it transpired into me becoming an 8th grade coach sooner than most guys because they go up with their kids the whole way. I learned a lot from them. I went to a shitload of coaching clinics. I mean, everything, online clinics, everything. You name it. Some fucking coach from West Virginia that's coaching Group 2 down there. I'm watching him, and he has a great idea about something. So I just absorbed all that, and I call guys all the time.
So kudos to you for stepping up, because being a coach for as long as you have the sideline coaches, they have a lot to say, but they never want to get involved. And there's plenty of places in the organization for them to get involved. Plenty of places. And it's not always on the field, but they'll sit there and they'll criticize you. And what
those are the people in the stands.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Those are the people in the stands.
They don't want to come down and do it.
And that's why I don't sit in the stands and watch most of the games.
I did this once where I took my parent giving me a bunch of shit because his kid was eating turf. I took my whistle off and I said, if you think you can do it, here. I'll give up my salary to you.
I've been there.
I'll give up my salary to you.
Mine was more like,
no, I don't want to do it.
How about you take your fat ass out of the stands and come down here? The turf will handle you. Come over here and you show my line how to block. Okay.
Kev, you were a little bit more diplomatic than Bobby was.
I can tell you a quick story about this sums me up the way I coach. Playing in the the quarterfinals this year, first round of the playoffs. We're playing Lyndhurst down in Secaucus. Well, separate field, away field. Everybody every year, one field gets the quarters and the semis. Very good team, Lyndhurst. We battled during the season. They beat us in the last second, and we were playing fantastic. We were 3-0. We were like looking to go 4-0. We had them. We were killing them, and they came back and won. Last second throw. Okay. Get to the playoffs. We know we got them in the first round. We're losing 13-8 at halftime. I look now. He's always on the sidelines. He's always there. He's lurking around. You know what I mean? It's like you'll see him move and shit like that. I'll be like, stop fucking moving, distracted. So I looked at him and I said, I got to make some kind of adjustment there. He's getting outside. They had a really good running back. He says to me, "Crash your ends." So I look at him. He goes, "They're not running a sweep." He goes, "They're running power." And then he's bouncing it outside because the guard's pulling and getting on your linebacker. Your end's containing. He goes, and then he's off to the fucking races. Your safety can't get there.
And that kid was fast too.
Yeah. So I said, bingo. Thank you. And like I made my adjustments. Crashed my end. Line now what the end crashes, what happens is the lead blocker or the back, they ran deep back. Like remember how Adrian Peterson used to be like 8 yards off the ball?
Deep.
So they would just toss the ball to him and he wouldn't go outside. They run power toss and they run power, just regular power pro set, right? So he would be going 6-hole.
By the way, you've lost our audience.
I'm sorry. Anyway, he's going to run the ball into the line. And then once he gets through the line, he's going to bounce it outside. He's off to the races. Kid's a good athlete. So what we did, we crash our end. So he crashes across that tight end or across that tackle's face into the backfield. And what he does is he takes on the pulling guard or he runs right into the back, which causes a log jam and makes now the kid's in the backfield. He has to go outside. He can't get through the line. Now he's one-on-one with my linebacker and one of my tackles or my middle linebacker. And Mike gave me that idea. They didn't gain a yard the rest of the freaking half, and we ended up scoring twice and winning. Yeah. And that was because I listened to Mike. I might have did something completely different. It may have worked, but I always am open to whoever, like, if I trust you. If it's some guy that's standing out in front of 7-Eleven smoking a Marlboro.
Like I said, constructive criticism or ideas from someone who knows.
Listen,
you don't listen to the parents in the stand saying, put my kid in there. My kid could do better than that.
It was like he was there and it was almost like it was meant to be. Like he said something to me. And then after the game, everyone was saying, Bob, what an awesome, like telling me how great the defense was. Defense was playing pretty good in the first half. They let up 2 decently long touchdowns. But other than that, we had some nice stops. I said, right there, Mike. And Mike said, no. He goes, you had the whole body of it. I just gave you an idea.
Well, sometimes that perspective from somebody who is not intimately involved, you get really intimately involved and you don't see the holes that you're missing.
Like I said before, sometimes 6 eyes are better than 2.
Yeah. So did you ever get accused of daddy ball?
No. I'm sure I have behind my back.
Behind your back, yeah.
But you've witnessed it.
I've witnessed daddy ball lots of times, and I've confronted it in my own organization. As the vice president for like over 10 years and now the president, I have went to coaches and said, no, that's not going to work. I've never done it.
Well, explain to everybody what daddy ball is.
Daddy ball is when you take your kid and you make him the focus of everything you do. And you're only coaching your son and you're not coaching anybody else. And it just can't happen. I've told guys that they have to leave because of it.
Now, is it when coaches do that? A lot of times, parents will coach to assure that their kids will play.
Yeah.
Listen, in my organization, in my program, and I can say this probably for every team in the Meadowlands Football League, which we're both very familiar with. the best 11 play. Because most of these other places are all about just winning. You know what I mean? And that's not a bad thing. They still get the development part in there because they got good coaches and they work the kids hard. They want to win. They don't care what, Mary's saying and Jack, oh yeah, my son's this and that. No, he's not. I tell the parents right up. I say, why isn't he in the game? Because he'll get killed if I put him in the game. He's not ready. I say,
or he'll get someone else killed.
So we're going to go B games, and then I have B games. So I let them play B games the next day. Parents are so happy about it because they get to see their kids. And I tell them, it's a safety issue. You do realize that football's the most violent sport. That and hockey.
Actually, you know what? I heard and I use this to recruit players. So do you know how many kids last year died playing junior league football? And we're talking 8th grade and below?
No.
8. Do you know how many kids died playing baseball? 9.
Yeah, they got hit by pitches or something?
Yeah, usually taking a line drive down third, hitting the chest, something like that, or beamed in the head or something. Do you believe that more kids died playing baseball, yet no parent ever has a problem when their son or daughter wants to play baseball or softball?
I can tell you no one's ever died from playing pocket pool.
One of the best sports out there.
Yeah, man. Especially when you're bored.
You just bring it back, don't you?
Right.
You just got to bring it down.
Moving right along.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bobby Crudele.
Yeah, right. But it's a life of sacrifice taking on the coaching position with your kids, because I would be there anyway. I would be at the field anyway because I'm invested in my kids' lives. I like watching it. But here's the sacrifice that I made. I have never watched my oldest play a complete football game. Like you. I try, you try to watch here and there, but I'm watching the field, or I'm watching the line. I'm watching 5 other guys or 6 other guys. So and that's what
film's for.
But that was what was so great about the 8th grade thing. And it kind of, my dreams got stomped on. I told the head coach, I said, I'm just excited to see a complete game of my son that I can watch. And he goes, yeah, don't get used to that idea. I go,
no, it doesn't happen.
I mean, you want, when you're coaching, you want to fixate on your son and watch how he's doing. But as a coach, you have to watch the big picture.
Correct.
You have to watch everything.
Somebody has to, because don't forget, now you have a coaching staff comprised of 4 or 5 other guys, and most of them have a kid on the field,
mm-hmm.
right?
So
in my case, this last year, I had 1, 2, 3 coaches that had players on the field, all significant players, all very good players, not just role players, not just some kid we threw in on 3rd down here and there to get some reps because he gave someone a blow. Significant good players, all going to be excellent players on the high school level. And listen, I coach differently. You know what I mean? Like I said, I really do. I'm proud of it. I go after it. I have a passion for it. I love it. I want to coach on a high school level so bad, but I just can't do it because of my job and everything else. But I know what they're doing. And if I say, what the fuck is Crop doing over on the defensive line? What's he doing? Is he getting killed up there? I can't see. No one can tell me because everybody's looking. Now I'm not saying that happened. They were great coaches. They knew what their roles were, but that can happen. So we put somebody up top who has no affiliation to anybody. Watch the defensive line. Watch the offensive line. If I want to know what my left guard's doing, you better tell me what he's doing. What's he doing? Don't watch the ball, because even the referees watch the damn ball and they miss plays constantly. Look at him. What, you didn't see?
Well, those players, those coaches with significant players on the field, do you think that their kids are significant because they're so involved, or they got involved because their kids were significant?
Well, most of my guys got involved at a very young age, and one of them I actually recruited. He wasn't coaching, and he played at Queen of Peace, and he was a very good player. He was a linebacker, and I remember him playing. He's in his early 40s, but I remember I always was watching Queen of Peace because I went there, and I knew he was. And I said, "Hey, listen, you got a lot to offer." I said, he goes, I played, but it's very difficult for certain players to coach, because they have a hard time with the transition part. But he did well, and he's a good asset to our staff. He's not trying to break any world records. He does what he does. But all dads get caught watching their kids.
No, it's not watching their kids. It's that extra attention that you can give. And listen, on the ride home from football, you can't tell me that you're not saying, hey, you did this really good or this needs work.
I never say anything to them.
We work on this stuff. Like, hey, maybe I can put you over here. That's the way my mind thinks, especially with the line. Maybe if I put you over here, I can bring you around on a pull if they're doing the sweep or something. And that's
they got to be ready for it. Right after a game, I realized unless we just won by 40, isn't a good time to talk about everything. You know what I mean? So it's more like a day later. My son, my youngest one, Dad, are you watching film? Yeah. Oh, I want to watch with you.
That's cool.
Break down the film. Break it down. Oh, look at this. It pays off. We're playing defense, and we're playing against Rutherford, and he's telling me they're going to run. He comes over to the sidelines real quick. He goes, they're going to run X37Z. I said, that's our play. He goes, they stole it. Yeah. So he went up and he made the play. And I was like, dude, he saw the formation, but he's a quarterback. So quarterbacks should know defensive formations and offensive formations. So.
See, I never coached my son in junior football. I coached him in baseball, but I was a volunteer coach at my son's high school, and I'd critique him, like we're saying, constructive criticism. I'd say, maybe you should do it like this. Maybe you should. You never jump down a kid's throat and say, why the fuck did you do it?
No. What's the hardest? What's the hardest sport to coach your kid in? Football for you seems very easy, because you have that passion for the game. And I'm sure it's the same thing for you, Mike. Like my youngest plays soccer. I know I can't coach soccer. I know nothing about soccer.
Well, my daughter's first year playing soccer, the coach said, if any of your parents want to coach, we lost one of our coaches. My shy little daughter goes, my daddy will coach.
Oh.
That was a soccer coach. I knew nothing about soccer.
Yeah, I don't know anything. I know
nothing about soccer
player, but I don't. Basketball was the hardest sport to coach both of them in. They're very good players.
What age?
Just all the way up. Like, it just...
I think once you hit the 5th, 6th grade, basketball becomes very, very challenging. Below that's pretty simple.
It's easy then down there. But like when we got older, for me, it was teaching them defensive philosophy, just playing basketball defense. And I sound like a broken record. Everything's defense for me. It just promotes so much more when you're a good defense player. Now, my big guy was such a good athlete, and I was like, you play defense terribly. Like, you're terrible. You're lazy. You get lazy steals, and then you're faster than everybody fast break. I said, you got to get your arms up. Like, he never wanted to listen to me about it, And it's reflected in the high school coaches. He played varsity as a freshman and sophomore before he stopped, and now he's just focusing on football. He's like, he was a starter, and they would say, if he was just a little more effort on defense. It was almost like he was saving himself for offense. I said, why? Your outside shot sucks. But we're going to have these conversations. I'm not your coach anymore.
Some of that is passion, both you and your son. Your son obviously has more of a passion for football than he does basketball. You obviously have more of a passion for
When
football.
I was playing, I had more passion for basketball because I just played it really well. It was easy for me to play, right. But like, he loves football and he wants to play on the next level. So now it's a really good relationship. It's like, listen, this is what you need to do, but I'm not the one that's going to get football in college is a fucking job, my man. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of fun.
Kidding.
There's meetings, there's this, there's that.
It's the greatest thing ever.
It is, but I'm just telling him, listen, time to get a little more mature. I'm not saying you can't go down the shore with your friends, have fun, do your thing. But when it's time to work, it's time to work, or else,
I think one of the hardest things to coach your kid in is baseball.
See, baseball is one of those things where I love football, but I have a passion for baseball. I always did.
Well, they say the hardest thing in all of sports is to hit a baseball.
Hit a major league baseball.
Your kid strikes out. What are you going to say? It was a terrible swing.
No.
I used to tell my son all the time, Derek Jeter struck out. Everybody strikes out. You're going to strike out, but a kid strikes out and he's got like tears coming down his face. It's fucking baseball. Yeah. You got to put it behind you and let's go on.
It's very tough. That's all sports, though. If you have a kid that's very emotional about things like that and carries things, what they always used to say to us, you make an error in the outfield, don't take it to the plate.
Exactly.
And if you strike out, don't take it to the field.
Yeah.
Short-term memory loss. You better have it. I fucked up more than anybody. I need to be like, all right.
I'm starting to see that with my oldest. He's very, very hard on himself. So I actually have to go talk to him in between. Like, say he strikes out, and in between I have to, you have 20 seconds to feel bad about this, but you got to get over it because you got to go out in the field. All right, feel bad about it. Nobody's telling you did anything wrong. The pros strike out plenty of times. It's not about that. It's about picking yourself up. But it's almost like Mike and I have talked about this before. It's almost you want your kids to taste a little failure just to see how they react. Because I don't know about you, as a coach, I learn way more from a kid who fails and watching them, how they lose or how they fail, than winning.
And it's how they pick themselves up after it, too.
Your true judge of character is how you handle adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And on the football field, as a team, you will face adversity. It could be your best player gets injured. It could be, you're just not having your best day and this team's up on you and you should be killing them. And it's what you do, how you pick yourself up, how you handle it. That's because the going isn't always good, and that's every sport. But in football, it's just a little different. Everything's just a little different with football. And that's where you teach these kids. Like I coach them to deal with the adversity, and it's how much they believe in you as a coach. They we're not doing this for, like I said, this is free, volunteer all the way. And I do it. So they look at me and they go,
but
okay.
I teach so the way my philosophy of coaching is a lot like you had in the police academy. That's my philosophy of coaching. So if I'll pick out the individuals on the team, and they're very easy to spot, and you break them down as individuals and you build them back up as a team. And it's tough, but it's a little bit of finesse because I have to talk to the parents. I said, look, this is what I'm doing. This is my coaching plan. Just bear with me. It's not that I hate your kids, because in reality, you can't ever raise your voice to a kid if that kid doesn't know that you love them. Like all your players, I'm sure you become very bonded to all of your players. And they wouldn't listen to you unless it's coming from a place of love.
But aren't you as a coach pretty much molding these kids for the rest of their lives?
Yes.
That's why
you're going to see failure. I used to tell the kids all the time, 72 Dolphins are the only team that ever went undefeated in any sport.
Yep.
You're going to lose games.
You're going
to lose games. You're going to taste failure.
Losing is part of life.
Losing is the best learning tool.
Yeah, it is. And you said something interesting about the police academy. I draw from all my experiences in life when I coach. You don't even realize you're doing it. I had 75 people in my class. I won a PT award. It was mine. It was mine the minute I walked in there. I was older than everybody. I was like 30. Everyone was 20-something. I was like, nobody's going to beat me in this thing. Every category, I'm going to blow everybody out of the water. It was my Olympics. Like, swear to God, it was my time to shine. I sound silly.
He still has the gold medal at home.
Dude,
he made it himself.
Got the fucking thing.
It's confidence.
I was like, I said, can I get a ring? No, but seriously, I won it. And I was upset because they treated me like I was better than everybody else. They treated me and they made other people feel bad that they couldn't do certain things. And I knew even then that just because I won some fucking PT award ain't going to make me any better of a police officer. It really isn't, because I know plenty of cops who couldn't fucking do that mile and a half that well and were slow as shit and, couldn't do more than 30 push-ups, but they're fantastic cops because it's way more than that. Yeah, it helps you in certain situations. You know what I mean? Being fit.
I'm surprised they didn't go after you for having that attitude.
Well, no, they did. They tried to, but I'm a very confident individual. I always stay strong, and I was like, I just won the PT award. Fuck. You know what I mean? I had that attitude with them, and I did plenty of push-ups in the hallway because of it. But I always stuck up for the weaker kid. I hung out with everybody. We came from a small town, and I was friends with everybody. The nerds, the geeks, the non-athlete guys, the guys
the stoners, the sports.
Yeah, everybody. We were friends with everybody, and I had compassion for people. I'm like, listen, if you can't cut it as a cop, then you can't cut it. But some of these guys are real good. They got the shit. They were good shooters. They did all the extractions from the vehicles well, and they were treating them like they were losers because they couldn't fucking do 50 push-ups.
There's a fine line. There's a fine line between cockiness and confidence. So one of our friends, Lee Roussan, he played in the blue and gray game, and on the bus, he told us this story out of his own mouth. On the bus, he sits down, guy sits down next to him and says this, I am Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver in the NFL. And he wasn't even in the NFL yet. Same way that you went into the police academy with that confidence, you made yourself into it. At some way, you don't want to break that confidence, because that confidence can be a very valuable asset, but you need to build the team around that confidence, almost bring everybody up to the same level of confidence in order to believe in themselves. I don't know, but if you saw a kid come on the field with that type of, I don't know whether it's cockiness or confidence, what would you do? How would you handle it?
I'd feed off of it. I'd see where it goes, and I'd have to dial it back at a time. But I want kids to come on the field and be super cocky. I don't want them talking shit. I don't want them to make their teammates feel like shit. I want them to. You develop leadership. That's one of the biggest things in football, right? Teamwork, and you find out who your real leaders are. They should be your captains. It shouldn't be because Dad's been coaching for, no, let's throw him a bone. He should be a captain. Oh, let's make a team captain. That kid couldn't captain his way to the fucking bathroom. No, he's good for what he does. He blocks, and that's it. He ain't going to be no captain. I ain't throwing bones out there. I'm kind of hardcore old school with that shit. You got to display something to the team that as a teammate, I can look up to you and say, Mike Failace. I'm looking up. I'm not lying. I looked up to Mike. I was a lot taller than him, but I always looked up to him when we were kids because
Had to get on your knees.
Mike was just a really good guy. And he was a really good guy to play. We played sports together, like in playground stuff. He was just a really good person, and I always looked up to him because he always had your back. That was the other thing, and that's part of football. I want my guy over here to have my back. I got to know my job. You got to know your job. If all 11 players know their job, you're going to have success, right? But then you start getting involved and become a little more complicated. What's the left tackle doing on this play? You don't know? Some kids don't have the IQ for it, but some kids do. And if you start learning what everybody else is doing, you have their back. Just like if I was walking home from school and some fucking 8th grader was going to start a fight with me and Mike was with me, guess what? We were going to have a fight, or they weren't going to fight because Mike was with me. You know what I mean? Right. Like you have my back. And that's a weird analogy, but it's true. And that transpires how you grow up and how you do things transpires into football.
Just getting back to the cockiness and confidence. When you're a confident player, it's going to show on the field. If you're just a cocky, arrogant asshole on the field.
I think it has to do a little bit with parenting. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think it has to do with how you raise your kids.
How many kids got dropped off on the field and say, here, parent my kid?
Yeah, exactly.
You became
everyone's parent. You became a babysitting service.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what?
It's 6 o'clock. What time's practice? Over 8:30? Or I'll be back at 8:30?
You're trying to say the cockiness is masking a deficiency.
It could be.
I think so.
Yeah, it's possible.
I think so.
It's called low self-esteem.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Some people that have low self-esteem want to appear to be something. Like I always say, a lot of these high school programs that are big-time programs, they get really good players. I'm not saying all of them. There's particular few of them. The head coach is fantastic. His offensive coordinator, his DC is good. Then all the other coaches, they want to appear to be coaches.
Yeah.
And I hope no one takes offense to that. But if you do, tough shit. It's true. Oh, I'm on so-and-so staff, and all I have to do is this, and I'm on that staff. But how effective really are you? You know what I mean? Why do I see your defensive backs doing this stupid shit out there? If you're the DB coach, you're supposed to be telling them how do they do a press? Where are they supposed to be? Are your receiver stemming the fucking defensive back that's taking an inside position, or is he just fucking running his route and not going, well, who's the receiver coach? I mean, these are the things that I think about. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I want to appear. I don't want everyone to appear to be anything. I want to be that thing, you know?
But with the cockiness, I have seen cocky football players that take a loss. Like I had a kid, great play, like athlete, really horrible loser, like absolutely horrible loser. And I've spent 2 years working on this kid and working on that. He comes in off a little cocky when he wants to play, but I've seen him lose and just break down. And I said, I keep telling him, every time I see him now, I said, who's your biggest enemy? And he already knows the answer. It's myself. Like that's what he knows. He knows that is. And I'm just going to drill that into his head because this is the type of kid, if he's coached early enough and that cockiness, which is a deficiency because he doesn't know how to lose, if we can erase that and replace it with confidence and being able to pick up the rest of his team to raise to that high tide, raising all the boats, he can be something special. And I know he can. It's not my son. It's a friend of mine's son, but there's a way to coach around that. You know,
you're coaching each individual, not just the team, too. That's the other thing we fail to realize. You know, a lot of times practice is kind of a generic thing, but I always try to, on the youth level, you really get to spend a lot of time with certain players. So you get to talk to them one-on-one, build up their confidence. You know who has the low self-esteem, who's the cocky kid who thinks he's better than everybody else, but he's really not. He's making up for a deficiency, but he can do something good for the team. You got to put him somewhere. You got to put him in the right spot. And you gotta build them up, you know, and sometimes you gotta break them down a little bit too. But that can happen on a one-on-one thing. I don't think it should happen
in front of the whole team.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
100%
Every
correct.
now and then, the whole team will get broken down all at once. You know what I mean? Because they need a little wake up check. They start thinking they're having, they get a little too confident themselves as a team. They get together. But then you see who your leaders are and if they come together as a team and they start doing things and you don't have to do that part of the coaching, you've done your job.
But I think it's getting over those mental blocks with kids.
Yeah. No.
I do, that's my big thing. I teach them how to get over mental blocks. And one of my proudest moments as a coach, one of my absolute proudest moments. So we did snakes often for conditioning after practice. Well, one time I call out a 100-yard snake. Now, at the time, I'm in such pain with my hips. My hips were just destroyed. I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. I said, I'll tell you what. They knew I was in pain every single practice. I said, I'll run the snakes with you. So some of the kids, as soon as they call out a 100-yard snake, oh my God. Do you know there was one kid who, it's my proudest achievement because he would come in last in everything, and he just never believed in himself. He finished that 100-yard snake. And you had to see the look on his face because he got past that mental block. And he wasn't even last. Some of my running backs were last. It was embarrassing. But I think getting kids over that mental block, instilling that confidence in them is going to produce such a much better football team. Because I at that level anyway.
I always said in coaching, I wouldn't tell a kid to do something that I couldn't do. The one year when I was...
Except bear crawls. I tell them to do bear crawls all the time, and I hated bear crawls.
When I was volunteer coaching at the high school, I took over the summer conditioning for the football team. I did every drill with them. Every drill. And we were split up into like 3 different groups. Half of them, someone would be lifting, some would be running the bleachers, some would be...
They respect you more.
I did every drill with them. I said, if I could do it at 50 years old, you could do it.
And I'll tell you what, that's motivational for them. And that should inspire them to do more. You know what I mean? It should make them, coach is doing it with us. And I think that's cool. When I trained the recruits, when I used to do the recruits and get them ready for the academy, I did everything with them.
That was my drill.
I got down
and I respected
every push-up, every run, every pull-up, everything. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Who's going to beat me today in push-ups? That used to be the big thing. Who's going to beat me? Who thinks they can beat me in push-ups? So we used to do like contests and stuff like that. So,
even after retirement, everybody that got hired after me in Lyndhurst, I got them in shape for the academy on my own time. Even after I retired, the chief would call me and say, Mike, do me a favor. We just hired 4. Could you get them in shape for the academy? Out running at 5 o'clock in the morning every day with these recruits.
But my police academy drill taught me how to coach. And that's the truth. Because again, he did everything with us. But conversely to that, we went to the range, and one of the guys from another department just liked to break balls. He was this big, fat, overweight guy. And he just liked to throw you down and do push-ups. Well, guess what? Everybody in that academy class called this guy a jerk-off. Nobody called the drill a jerk-off. And he did way more stuff to us, but he always did it with us. Until the one person, somebody drops, it was a total of 75. I think somebody dropped 75 cents, and we had to do side straddle hops on a 4 count. Nobody realizes how hard that is.
Yeah.
Now, I'm relating coaching to the police academy. Do you think coaching is like a paramilitary thing like the police academy is? Do you have to break them down to build them up?
I believe that. I do.
I think the breaking part comes in minicamp, because you're getting them in. They just had what they have of their summer. It's August 9th, and you're going to get them in there, and everybody went away, and if everyone in our program pretty much doesn't go on vacation in August. They're pretty good. They're committed. My big message is always that football is the biggest commitment you're ever going to make in your life. It just is, and you're going to find out why, because minicamp's starting. And it's conditioning. It's getting right into. Dude, I do offense and defense on my first night of minicamp. I get them all together. We do everything. We get to like a flood, a tidal wave of information right off the bat. And they walk off the field. And the other thing is I make the most of the 3 hours. Like there's no parents are sitting there going, listen, this is what I do. I outwork. I work.
I did a mini combine this year, which was great because I brought everybody in on a level playing field. Like we knew who the quarterback last year was. Well, sorry, you don't have a job, and we did a mini combine.
Everybody does that.
But the mini combine, and I used it. I had a whole scoring sheet by every coach, and we backed up everything. Okay, this guy was a quarterback. This is why he was the quarterback, because he can throw, he can move, he can do this and do this. This is why this guy's a lineman. This is why. And it solidified all of our decision making, and it also made the kids try and work a little bit harder.
It's good too, because sometimes you have a kid that comes along and he might be a little bit of a late bloomer, or he might want to try another position. And I always open it up and say, listen, same thing. Who wants to be a quarterback this year? Okay. Usually nobody, because it's the hardest position on the field to play. And it's the most responsibility, and no one wants to get blamed for everything. You know what I mean? So they don't. But every now and then there's a kid who steps up, or they more rather be a running back, receivers, and I give them the shot. And after like a few weeks, but while they're getting their shot, they're still playing their position that they normally played, but they're getting that shot too. And if they show me something, they'll get in there. If they don't, they go back to what they were doing.
See, the tough thing is 7th and 8th grade, kids' bodies are changing.
Yeah.
One kid will be he'll be a fat little, tackle one year. The next year he comes back and he's like jacked.
Yeah, he's like a tight end.
My son now has always been a lineman, but he's so much taller and but I don't have anybody else for the line, so he's just stuck.
But what's going to happen is you're going to see when sometimes you get these teams, like you'll have a mediocre team on the 7th and 8th grade level, and those 8th graders are pretty good. They'll go to high school, but then that same group in high school is like winning a division, and you're like, shit, they were just like 500 when they were 8th graders because the line got bigger. Like I use my school, for example. I have a great relationship with the high school coach and their program and what they're doing. I try to help as much as I can change the culture. That line that they have this year is huge, and they're all working out. They're like 270, the average size. They're humongous. If they can't run the ball and they can't, it'll be a travesty. I mean, and the defensive line, like deep, I'm talking like 9 defensive linemen.
Wow.
I mean, they're big and strong. So my point is they weren't when I had them. When I had them, I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm scraping the barrel here. I won the first round of the playoffs because God came down and played quarterback for me.
You brought theory in their lives. So if somebody came to you, being a coach for as long as you did, and said, what is the best piece of advice you could give somebody looking to get into coaching, especially on the junior league level?
It's going to sound generic. You got to do it for the right reasons. You got to know what your reason is. Okay, so my son is, he ever since he came out, he's been running around the house with a football. It's amazing. He's going to be the next Barry Sanders. Okay, pal. Here we go. Now you want to coach? Remember, he's not going to be the next Barry Sanders. He's not going to go to Bergen Catholic. He's not going to do anything. He isn't even going to play high school football. What he's going to do is he's going to play flag football, and you're going to coach it. And you're going to coach him and everybody else on that team the same way, exactly the same way. So if you're going to be overzealous towards your son, you're going to be overzealous towards everybody. If you're going to be the median of the road guy, I don't want anybody to think I'm a daddy coach here, and I'm not concerned. I'm going to treat everybody the same way, but I'm going to be consistent, because consistency in life is a benefactor. Consistency in coaching is a main ingredient to be something special. If you're coaching, you should want to be special. You should want somebody to be standing out there. You should want the Mike Failace who's standing out there, look and say, he's a good fucking coach for some reason. Might not be because your scheme is so great. It might just be the way you approach the kids, the way you talk to them, the way you motivate them, something. But you need to look at it from the very beginning, and you have to stay consistent in your coaching career the same way. And you have to learn. You have to constantly learn.
It's really about learning what a kid's talent is and putting him in the right position to succeed.
Yeah.
Right? A kid could be a big kid, but he's very agile. Maybe you throw him at linebacker then.
You have too many coaches that put them where they think they should go.
Yeah, exactly.
And, actually, don't play to their strengths.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You play to their strength or their talent.
If you have a good coaching, a good core, so your core is your head coach, your defense coordinator, your offense coordinator. Everybody else is like secondary coaches. No offense to them. They just are. If you're doing it the right way, then those guys are the best coaches you have in those spots. They're not there. Me and Joe always selected who was what. And it wasn't because of any other reason except what you brought to the table. All right. So when I came up to him, he made me his defensive coordinator, and there was other guys. And I think they were kind of pissed off about it. But he's like, we're a better football team now because of this. So just deal with it. But those guys make the decisions. And I've had kids that he's not a linebacker. He's a defensive end. I got to put him at defensive end. And I put him at defensive end. The kid's thanking me by the end of the year. Oh, I love playing defensive end.
Because they shine. They're always going to like what they're good at.
Because you have to judge talent, like Mike said. You have to judge talent. Judging talent is playing them where they're supposed to play. Now, that might change in high school. They might develop even more and become something else. But your job is to put them in a comfortable situation, get the most out of them, get them ready for the next level. See you later.
The one thing I always bring up is, do you remember Jared Lorenzen?
No.
he was a quarterback at University of Kentucky, and he was a backup with the Giants for a while. Big, fat quarterback. If you looked at him, you thought he'd be like a guard. They used to call him the hefty lefty.
But he was good.
Yeah.
Guy had a great career. He's still playing like the USFL now or whatever it is.
I want to really give you these guys because we don't have a lot of time left here.
Well, so we
Bob,
are.
You got all night, Bob.
We are coming to the end of this thing. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to throw out?
Yeah. No, I want to present you guys with these T-shirts. I know they're not much, but we get T-shirts made every year, and it says North Arlington Junior Vikings football. That's our program in the Meadowlands Football League, and you're definitely not a size large. We know that.
Were you saying I'm fat?
No, just saying you might have had the fat gene. But,
Thank you, Bobby. I really appreciate it.
They're just regular T-shirts, and anything else. I'll have some more gear during the year, and I know you're coach. You're not going to be wearing the North Arlington Junior Vikings thing, but around the house or to the gym or something.
Absolutely,
the team he coaches is the Vikings too, right?
A little Vikings.
Yeah.
The little
So absolutely, I'll tell you why. why.
That's what the V is for?
That's what the V is for. It's not vagina.
I was going to say vag. I wasn't going to go the whole vagina route. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a bad word, right? Oh,
you can't even have a penis these days.
We're more than 5 minutes into this.
Bobby,
we can say it.
Non-binary.
I always love when you come by, Bob. So listen,
it's always a trip.
We are coming to the end of this thing here, and we were supposed to talk about. It's more about the suffering of coaching on this one. So
we can do a part 2.
If you could pick out what the suffering of coaching has taught you, what would it be?
I think to be true to yourself. Ultimately, you're getting something out of it because of you're doing something for somebody else. And so it's a reflection of you, and if I can walk away from coaching and say, I did my very best for these kids. I just wasn't there to appear to be something. Like I said before, I'm there to do what the very best I can do. It's not Bill Walsh. It's not Lombardi. It's not Buddy Ryan, but it's me. And I put my stamp on it. And hopefully I did the right thing and these kids got something out of it. And I was a positive piece of their football life. And that's the best way I can put it.
I can tell you all my football coaches growing up.
I got to say, my big thing is stay humble. You're not Bill Belichick. You're coaching junior kids football. Stop thinking that you're going to win a goddamn Super Bowl next week.
Yeah.
Stay humble and realize that you're molding these kids for their future.
You're a teacher.
That's really all you are.
You're a teacher.
Without the pay.
At its core, I think that's a good spot to leave it. At your core, you're a teacher. Bobby, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
We always love having you. Thanks for the shirts, and go North Arlington Junior Vikings.
Well, listen, this means a lot to me because
is that your team?
I played for. It wasn't the Junior Vikings back then. It was the North Arlington Leaders. I went 6 years through that program.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, the suffering of coaching or coaching your kids, whichever way you want to look at it. And as always, let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Teach and coach respect to your children. Build them up. Use your resources. Hard work beats talent, especially when talent doesn't work hard. But most importantly, consistency, consistency, consistency. That's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast. Don't forget, Digital Business Card. Go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a nice 20% discount. You can always listen before you watch. All of our audio episodes come out on Sunday before they air on Monday on YouTube. Follow us on all social media. That's LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Clapper, Instagram, and please comment with everything. I want you to share our episodes as much as possible. Don't forget to follow The Suffering Podcast on Instagram. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace and follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And we will see you on the next episode.